Come on. Do I sound like I'm joking? Do I sound like I'm playing? When you look into my eyes, you understand what I'm saying? Let me say it to you slowly, and it may sound scandalous. I don't think that you can handle this.
Once again, we are on. He is the great Mike Steph. I am TheMoJoKing, and we are Hidden Gems Football, brought to you by 19 Media Group. This week, we are discussing the AFC West. Before we get into the individual teams, Mike Steph, do you have one big thing to discuss?
When it comes to the AFC West, you damn right I got one big thing. One thing that's been burning a hole into my benevolent soul for the last couple of weeks. And I've been wanting to get this take out so bad that hopefully I do it justice now that I finally have the chance to espouse on what I've been feeling. My one big thing when it comes to the AFC West has to deal with the Denver Broncos. Not only really dealing with the Denver Broncos as a whole, as a label, as a team, as a franchise, as a whole. No. It comes down to one person only. Sean Payton, the new head coach of the Denver Broncos, formerly Fox Sports commentator, formerly 16-year tenure as the head coach of the New Orleans Saints, formerly, or should I say a former Super Bowl champion coach. And I'm going to break away from what I've been doing, return to the trusty ass notes, because I want to make sure I get everything out that I have to say about this mouse of a man, about this Peyton Oswalt wannabe. For those who don't know who Peyton Oswalt is, he's famous for the character Spence of one of my favorite sitcoms ever, King of Queens. But I digress. Just a heads up, Mo, if you have a censorship button, this would probably be the time to implement it right now.
Oh boy.
Sean Payton is an asshole. A talented one, but one nevertheless. After 16 successful years in New Orleans, he stepped down before last season and spent it commentating with Fox Sports. The Broncos traded a first and a second round draft pick for this shell of a man to be their head coach, to be their leader. He steps into a situation with the number one priority to be to rebuild what some would say would be a broken quarterback and one Russell Wilson. After last year's disaster, that might be tougher than it looks. Stories of Wilson having his own personal coaches and staff aside from the team, his own office, his own floor did not endear him to his teammates. But with all that being said, you know what the biggest story coming out of camp is so far? It's the lack of respect that Sean Payton has showed his previous regime, headed by none other than Nathaniel Hackett. Do you know that the turd called Sean Payton, the turd named Sean Payton, called last year's team the worst coached team in the history of the league? Like Adam Gates wasn't a head coach in this league. But I digress. And then he doubled down and not only throwing shots at a fellow coach, which goes against the unwritten rule in the coaching fraternity. He doubled down and said that he thought that the Jets' acquisition of Nathaniel Hackett was just a mere ploy to get the services of Aaron Rodgers. I mean, it's the same thing that his current team attempted to do last year, except they were stupid enough to give him the head coaching job instead of just making him the coordinator. Maybe Aaron Rodgers knew, you know what, that's my boy, that's my bro. You know, I love his family, love his wife, love his kids. But I know when somebody's head coaching material, and I know when their bread is buttered as being a coordinator. And they gave him the kingdom, and I was like, you know, I'll pass. To me, he should concentrate on his own rebuilding situation And as Aaron Rodgers so distinctly said, he needs to keep his coach name out his effing mouth. On top of that, do you know what one of the very unheralded moves that have been done in this offseason concerning the offensive side of the football, and I'm quite sure has Sean Payton's fingerprints over it? They gave Jarrett Stidham. They gave Jarrett Stidham a 2-year, $10 million contract to back Wilson up. That makes you wonder, how much confidence does he have in himself? And Sean Payton is who I'm speaking of. How much confidence does he have in himself that he can actually have a reclamation project and bring Russell Wilson back to his former glory? Or is the end game truly to ride this season out and maybe, just maybe sabotage the potential rebirth of Russell Wilson to get from underneath that $85 million poison pill that is due next offseason, and he can really mold Stidham in the shadows to be the heir apparent? Because one thing that Sean Payton is known for is he needs to be the king of his castle. He needs to be the man. He needs his ego fed consistently. This is the man that was a Taysom Hill? That was his name, Taysom Hill? He ran Taysom Hill out every opportunity he could. Everybody knew Taysom Hill wasn't a quality starting quarterback, but he ran him out to feed his ego. And this man talk about the worst coaching job in history. This is the man that was at the helm of Bounty Gate and was suspended for 1 year. But yeah, he wants to throw stones in glass houses. Yeah, that's my one big thing. Mo?
We're going to get into the Broncos in a second, but since you were mentioning Sean Payton, I have a question. Do you feel like his attack was for his own gratification, or was it to try to build up confidence in Russell Wilson?
I think two things could be true. I think it was a combination of both. Because he knows without Russell Wilson at somewhat optimal level, there will be no success this year. But also, he wants to make it be known that this is his team. He's going to install his culture, and none of the BS, as he termed it, that happened last year will not happen under his watch. So I think both things could be true.
All right, let's dive a little bit deeper into the Denver Broncos. They're coached by Sean Payton, who was 159-89 in 15 years in New Orleans. He brings over a new staff with him. Offense coordinator is Joe Lombardi, Vince's grandson. And he's also the former Seattle quarterback coach when Russell Wilson was there. On the defensive side, Vance Joseph takes over. The quarterback is obviously Russell Wilson. He had a terrible year, 16 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. He also was sacked 55 times, which tied for the worst in the league with Justin Fields. Running back Javonte Williams is coming back from a torn ACL. The most recent update is he's expected to play in the preseason.
Really?
So they have their workhorse back, although I'm not quite sure he'll be a workhorse coming off an injury like that. Backing him up is TheMoJoKing P. who's a big bruising back and will probably spell Williams at times. In wide receiver, Jerry Jeudy took a big step last year. He looks like the clear number one now. The one who had been perennially the number one was Courtland Sutton. He's had kind of a rough last season or two. Unfortunately, their number 3 wide receiver, Tim Patrick, was returning from a torn ACL, now has torn his Achilles. So he is out for another season. They're going to hope that rookie Marvin Mims can help them in that regard. Tight end is undecided. There'll be a camp battle there. Their offense was dead last in scoring last year, 32nd place. Their defense was better, though. They, as far as scoring, were 12th in the league. They allowed only 21.1 points a game, in a good part due to their secondary, which is really strong. All right, last year the struggle was real. 5-12 during the season. They have the expected win total this season of 8.5. Can Sean Payton get this same team to 9 wins? What do you say, Mike Steph?
No, not at all. Not at all. And part of it is me being petty. Part of it is very personal. But even though, being the fact that we just spoke and did numerous episodes concerning the NFC and how weak the NFC is, that is not the case for this group of episodes. The AFC is a monster. Like, I know the format is 7 teams can get into the tournament, and you can truthfully say at least 10 teams in the AFC have a great chance of getting into the tournament. I mean, you can maybe stretch it out to maybe 11, possibly 12. And I would believe Denver would be on the outside looking in. I can see them going 8-9. Like you said, the defense was the strong suit last year. You know, the coordinator is another former New York Jets. He is a former quarterback of the Jets, Van Joseph, and he's also a former head coach of this same Denver Bronco franchise. But I digress. The final answer is no. 8-9, maybe more like 7-10, because their division is a monster in itself. They'll be lucky if they don't end up in the cellar, even though we're probably going to talk about the cellar dwellers in a few minutes.
I'll say flat out, there's no way I'm betting either way, because I really don't know. I think Russell Wilson spiraled last year. His pedigree is just somebody that should bounce back. While Sean Payton, I don't think Sean Payton should have been ripping Fangio at all about his coaching job. There's no reason to do that publicly. And it seemed personal, honestly. He kind of has a point, though. Because when things got bad, they kept getting worse. And that I put on coaching. Now, how much does Sean Payton turn his team around? How good is Russell Wilson really? Maybe he's done. He was fading in Seattle. So he's a smaller quarterback. Maybe he's just reached the end of his rope. But I expect him to come back. I expect Sean Payton to make this team better. If I was forced to say something, I might say over, but I really wouldn't. This one I wouldn't even touch with the 20-foot pole.
Welcome, everybody, to the Gimmick Infringement podcast. I am Brad Winchester.
And I am Tyler McDowell Blanken. Join us every week on GI, where we talk about what happened in pop culture, our lives, and most importantly, professional wrestling.
We have the best in the world, the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yep, best
Coached,
in the world, right there.
Yes. In case anybody was not noticing, didn't know why the BITW was there, it's because Mike Steph is a Kansas City fan. All right.
Okay, I got you.
All right. Head coach is, of course, Andy Reid. He is 129-52 with the Chiefs. He also had a very good career with the Eagles. They have a new offense coordinator. Bieniemy's gone, but in returns Matt Nagy. I don't know that there's much to talk about on the offense because you have Patrick Mahomes. But let's break it down a little bit. Isaiah Pacheco and Jerick McKinnon. The wide receivers are looking a little stark. They have Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Didn't do much with Aaron Rodgers, but looked pretty solid over here with Mahomes. Sky Moore's coming into his second year. They like his upside. And then there is the enigma, Kadarius Toney, formerly of the Giants. But maybe they don't need receivers at all because at tight end, they have possibly the GOAT, Travis Kelce. Their offense and defensive lines are strong. Actually, the whole defense was strong last year. Their offense was ranked number 1 in scoring. There is no stopping Patrick Mahomes. Their defense was middling, but at 18th, very solid when you consider how strong their offense was. Last year, I know I was doubting them because of the loss of Tyreek Hill, and they went 14-3, eventually winning the Super Bowl. Covers.com has their win expectancy at 11.5. Mike Steph, is there any way you're going under with the Kansas City Chiefs?
No. To me, that's kind of a safe bet. 11.5. So you're saying, all right, at the worst, they're going to have to go 12-5 because I can't see them 11-6, 10-7 because they have so much talent. You can't say they're going to win less than 12 games. I mean, they kind of proved it, but you said they went 14-3 last year. You know, they got to the big game, and regardless of whether or not the turf was suspect, they took care of what they need to take care of. I really think as long as they have these 3 individuals, Mahomes, Kelce, Andy Reid, they're pretty much a lock. They went to 5 straight AFC championship games. It would not surprise me if this year they go to their 6th straight. The only thing stopping them is probably a certain team in Jersey, but I digress. So, yeah, I go over. I definitely go over.
I have to go over. I don't want to. I look at the wide receivers, and I'm just, obviously Sky Moore, he can project out and end up being a superstar. But as I know them right now, I do not like that wide receiver core at all. But as I alluded to earlier, I said the same thing about last year. Patrick Mahomes is just so special that between him, especially with Kelce, and Andy Reid calling the plays, they seem unstoppable. Seems like you could throw anybody out there. Maybe me and you could end up as their receivers next year.
The one thing I would say about Kansas City that would be frustrating to me would be fantasy oldness. Because being the fact that they don't have, all right, you have Mahomes and Kelce. Before that, you had Mahomes, Kelce, and Hill, Tyreek Hill. So you always knew pretty much where the ball was going to go. What they proved last year was, all right, you have the constant in Kelce, but all the ancillary parts can be the man on any given Sunday. And fantasy-wise, that would be proved to be frustrating because all right, let's say you pick Hilaire Edwards, and then all of a sudden it's Pacheco. You pick Pacheco, it's McKinnon. You pick up Sky Moore, then it's Scandalin. It's always, but that's what's going to make them so tough to beat in the real world. But fantasy-wise, I'd probably stay away from that.
Are you ready to step up your style without compromising the planet? Introducing the exciting partnership between BLUEVIEW Footwear and the 19 Media Group Network. Just visit bit.ly/BLUEVIEW19 to start your sustainable style journey. Our friends over at BLUEVIEW Footwear are renowned for introducing the world's first fully biodegradable sneaker. By using plant-based plastics, they are leading a revolution in cleaner materials and manufacturing. They have sleek and contemporary styles that cater to a wide range of tastes. BLUEVIEW Footwear believes that fashion and sustainability can coexist harmoniously. Explore their incredible collection of eco-friendly footwear by visiting bit.ly/BLUEVIEW19. If you let us know you made a purchase, we'll shout you out on our next show. Again, just visit bit.ly/BLUEVIEW19 today, and you'll see the ultimate collaboration of fashion, sustainability, and media excellence.
Up next is the Las Vegas Raiders. Our coach, Josh McDaniels, was 6-11 last year at the helm. They have a big change at quarterback. Jimmy Garoppolo comes in and replaces Derek Carr. At running back, the Raiders do have a real strength there. Josh Jacobs, he rushed for over 1,600 yards last year and had 12 touchdowns. Also, 53 receptions. Speaking of stars, At wide receiver, Davante Adams, one of the game's best, over 1,500 yards last year and 14 touchdowns. They signed Jacoby Myers away from the Patriots. They still have Hunter Renfrow at tight end, Austin Hooper, and their second-round draft pick from Notre Dame, Michael Mayer, who is huge, 6'4", 250 pounds, and expected to be really good. So Jimmy G will have weapons. Last year, this team went 6-11. The win expectancy for this year is 6.5. Mike Steph, do you think they go over or stay below 6.5 wins this year?
That's a good question, because part of me believes that they should be slightly improved from last year, because I just don't think that the combination of Derek Carr and Josh McDaniels was ever going to work out and improve it bear fruit by Derek Carr pretty much being ushered out before the end of the regular season. People have to remember that Josh McDaniels has experience with Jimmy G based on their years in New England. People are quick to forget that Jimmy G was supposed to be, quote unquote, the heir apparent to Tom Brady in New England. And who was the coordinator back then? Josh McDaniels. Davante Adams is going to be someone to watch, because you cannot tell me he's not disgruntled because of the mere fact that the reason why he came to Las Vegas was due to his former college teammate and his close personal friend, Derek Carr, and now he's stuck in the land of the lost. So he's already made comments of he's not really sure of what's going on and what the vision of this team, what the vision of this offense is going to be. And he's walked it back a little bit, like saying that there's no slight toward Jimmy G, more of a slight toward the coach. I got this one stat before I actually give you my full answer. Josh McDaniels led this team last year. Well, the Josh McDaniels led team last year was the first team in probably over 90 years to blow 5 games in which they had a 7-point or more lead at halftime. Inconsistent play calling can and should be seen as the culprit. Then you got to think of Josh Jacobs. Similar situation to Saquon. Like, is he really going to be able to mentally give up his body for a team that he knows that wasn't willing to give him the extra bread that he so richly deserved? Those are all questions. Those are all questions that need to be answered. And the only thing they have on the defensive side is Max Crosby, who is outstanding, but one defensive stalwart does not make a winning team. They're going to be last in this division, so yeah, I'm going to under.
Yeah, I'm rolling with you. I have never liked Jimmy G. The one thing I will say is that Davante Adams, no matter what backup they threw in there, Davante Adams still went off. The guy's a beast. So maybe he makes Jimmy G start looking good. Maybe I will have egg on my face, but I just don't see it. I don't really like the climate of this team. I don't like the quarterback of this team. They have 2 superstars there and 1 on defense, so they have 3 superstars there, but I don't know about the rest of the team, so I'm going under. Yes. Let's move over to a team that everybody loves in the beginning of the season, and then they turn out mediocre. That is the Los Angeles Chargers, coached by Brandon Staley. They have new coordinators on both ends. On the offensive side, it's Kellen Moore, formerly of the Cowboys. On the defensive end, it's Derek Ansley. He was the Chargers' defensive back coach, so him fitting in as a defense coordinator looks pretty solid. At quarterback, it's Justin Herbert. At running back is Austin Eckler. At receiver, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Jalen Guyton, and first-round draft pick Quentin Johnson. Gerald Everett is at tight end. Their offensive line is expected to be strong, as is their defense. Well, not in the front four, not in the defensive line, but their defensive backs are really good. This team has habitually been run on against. Their offense, as far as scoring, was 12th, mediocre last year. Their defense, as far as scored against, was 23rd. They ended up 10-7 last year, making the playoffs, getting out to a big lead in the playoffs, and then the Jacksonville event happened. This year, their win expectancy is 9.5, putting them pretty close to last year. Mike Steph, what do you think about the Los Angeles Chargers this season?
The Chargers remain one of the most frustrating teams to watch, to bet on, because Brandon Staley and his idiotic decisions cost me plenty of coin the last couple years. And I feel for that fan base because they've had key positions in place, and for one reason or another, they just are snake bit. I mean, this goes all the way back to the Phillip Rivers days. They've always found the way to gum things up, so to say. The Jacksonville debacle, which you speak of, they were up 27-0 at halftime. They got outscored 31-3 in the second half. Do you know, out of the 3 or 4 times that's happened in history, that the team with the 27-point lead lost, they were the only team that actually lost in regulation? Think about that. Like, I'm going to read this, so once again, so I don't get off task. But the woes of the Chargers came back to haunt them, and they promptly lost that game that we were just referring to by 1 point. To me, a lot of the blame goes to the idiot head coach, Brandon Staley, who played their starters in a meaningless game in the last regular season game. And of course, 3 players got hurt, including their starting wideout, Mike Williams, who I best believe in the second half, they could have used greatly to extend drives. To me, they're on the verge of wasting the prime years of Justin Herbert, who just is on the heels of signing one of the record-breaking quarterback contracts that seems like it's like commonplace this offseason. Justin Herbert, to me, is always my go-to when it comes to fantasy football. You know, like, Justin Herbert is one of the most consistent quarterbacks that you can see, even though I've heard during this offseason of, well, you know, he never makes the big play when the time deems it to happen. And I'm like, to me, I don't put that blame on Justin Herbert. I put it on the head coach, putting him in a position that they should be dominating with Keenan Allen and Everett and all those dudes. They should never be in a position that you have to last 4 minutes of the game, Justin Herbert has to pull a rabbit out of his hat. Now, the one last thing I'll say on this team is Austin Eckler. Austin Eckler is yet again another running back that has been undervalued this offseason. He requested a trade because he wanted a long-term extension that was pretty much, we ain't signing you long-term. He renegotiated his contract, I think, for the betterment of maybe an extra $2 million of what he was slated to get. Now, Austin Eckler, if I do remember, due to the expertise of the MoJoKing, he had 13 rushing touchdowns and 5 receiving touchdowns for a total of 18 last year. Last year alone, I believe over the last 3 years, he's probably garnered that team at least 30 plus touchdowns. But yet they were unable, or should I say, unwilling to pay that man. So once again, you have another running back coming into the regular season that really is going to have to think twice about whether or not they decide to really put their body on the line for a franchise that deems them to be expendable. I went under with the Broncos. I went over with the Chiefs. And I went definitely under with the Raiders. So I guess you know what that means. Based on Justin Herbert, I have to go over. I can see them going 10-7 again. Would they do anything in the playoffs? Probably not. Because as long as they had Brandon Staley, they're going to be a one and done. But over.
Well, yeah, I'm going over too. My main reasoning for this is that I believe Justin Herbert, he hurt his ribs early in the season. I don't think he was ever 100%. Mike Williams had some injury issues. Keenan Allen had some injury issues. Even when they were playing, they weren't at 100%. That injury regression should be coming back. They should be doing a little bit better. I like this team for over 10 wins, as long as they stay healthy. Coaching aside, Staley likes to gamble way more than I'm comfortable with. And he may win a game that way. He likely will lose a couple games that way. But I still think that 10 wins seem pretty safe. And this was one of those that I think I'm going to go look at, and I might just go bet it too. All right, that wraps up the AFC West. Thank you all for listening. Mike Steph, take us out.
Yeah, this one was just a taste of what's to come now that we're on the best side of the NFL, the AFC side. You know, the AFC is going to be so competitive that it got my competitive juices flowing. It got me more back into the swing of things. You know, because we had a couple OTA episodes, but I think right now we're pretty much like in preseason form, like maybe like the formerly third game of the preseason, which is like a dress rehearsal for the regular season. So yeah, I'm feeling it. So with all that being said, Hidden Gems Football is a part of the 19 Media Group. Goodbye.
Bye, folks. Bye.
This is a 19 Media Group presentation.
Yeah, I'm so glad I'm not a proclaimed Chargers fan, because I think they will pull my non-existent hair out of my scalp.
All right, let me start that over, because that's not even fair, because he wasn't on the Jets last year, obviously.
I have one thing to say, and I hope I timed this right. Brandon Staley is a worthless piece of.
You're getting good with the mute button, sir.
Yeah, I know. I was looking at this. I'm like, oh, I better time this right, because I'm just going to add more editing to the MoJoKing if I don't do this right.
Hey, man, tell him how you feel. You know, I'll figure it out.